He claimed he was allergic to women, so allergic that even a single touch could send him into shock. But when Ivy, a quiet maid with a mysterious past, entered Nathaniel King's mansion, his carefully built lie began to unravel. What started as silent obedience turned into a deadly game of obsession, secrets and survival. Behind the walls of a billionaire's empire, one woman would risk everything to expose the truth he thought he'd buried forever. Nathaniel King was no ordinary CEO. At just 35, he had built one of the most advanced tech empires in the world. His face rarely appeared in public, and when it did, he wore gloves and never shook hands. Rumors surrounded him like a fog. Some claimed he had a psychological disorder, others said he suffered from a rare genetic allergy to human touch, specifically from women. Over time, the truth was buried under media fascination. The world accepted the idea that Nathaniel had a physical reaction whenever a woman came too close. He didn't deny it. In fact, his entire corporate and personal life was built around this myth. His company headquarters had an all-male staff on the executive floor. His home was run by a male-only crew. There were no exceptions. Yet behind the gates of his sprawling countryside mansion, Nathaniel lived in solitude that grew heavier each year. The halls were silent, meals were served without conversation, cleaning was done with precision, but always in his absence. Despite the wealth and luxury surrounding him, his home felt like a cage of gold. What no one realized was that Nathaniel's isolation wasn't caused by illness. It was driven by fear and obsession. He had designed his world to avoid questions, to keep his secrets safe. Those few who ever entered his inner circle were either loyal beyond reason or disappeared quietly. No scandals ever touched him, no lawsuits ever gained ground. But inside those walls, his mind was unraveling. The agency that handled staffing for his estate had always followed one rule: never send women. But due to a clerical oversight, a new cleaner was assigned to the mansion. A young woman named Ivy. Her identity was hidden under a gender-neutral profile. She was quiet, efficient, and wore a uniform that obscured most of her features. When she arrived, Nathaniel barely glanced at her. The house manager, fearing backlash, attempted to fix the mistake, but Nathaniel dismissed it, believing her to be just another soft-spoken boy. He had grown accustomed to minimal interaction. He didn't notice the sign. Ivy began her work with dedication. She was polite, careful not to speak unnecessarily, and always completed tasks ahead of schedule. The staff appreciated her presence, but kept their distance. Everyone feared breaking the rules of the mansion. As Ivy moved through the home each day, she started noticing strange details. The cameras were everywhere, yet certain rooms, particularly Nathaniel's private study, had no surveillance. Doors were sealed with electronic locks. Hallways had pressure sensors. The mansion wasn't just protected, it was paranoid. Ivy's curiosity was slow burning. She didn't know what was wrong, but she sensed something wasn't normal. The man everyone believed was allergic to women had walked past her several times, even brushed her shoulder once without any reaction at all. There was no coughing, no swelling, no fear. He didn't seem aware, or perhaps he was pretending not to be. Something was off. Ivy began watching more closely. The man who never allowed women near him had one living under his roof and hadn't done anything about it. That was the first crack in the lie, and Ivy, unknowingly, had stepped into the most dangerous part of his world. Days passed quietly in the mansion, but Ivy could feel the atmosphere shifting. At first, Nathaniel kept his distance, appearing only in brief moments, crossing the hall, speaking coldly to the staff, or retreating into his private study. But after her accidental touch, things began to change. One evening, while polishing a shelf in the library, Ivy stumbled backward and brushed against him. She froze, expecting panic, alarms, maybe even medical emergency, but instead, Nathaniel simply looked at her and walked away. No reaction, no illness. It was the first time she truly doubted the story of his allergy. Soon after, Nathaniel began requesting her by name. Ivy was told to clean only the West Wing, a part of the house reserved for his private quarters. It was unusual, cleaners never worked near him directly. The orders were clear. Ivy would now maintain his study, his bedroom and his personal lounge. Though it raised eyebrows among the staff, no one questioned it aloud. What Nathaniel wanted, Ivy followed instructions, but her unease deepened. Every day, she found the same chair near the fireplace warm, the same blanket crumpled with a faint smell of cologne and something else, something that seemed to linger from her own hands. Nathaniel began staying in the room while she worked, pretending to read or scroll through his phone. He didn't speak to her, but he watched. Sometimes he would sit in silence as she dusted the furniture, his eyes following her movements with a strange intensity. Then the requests grew stranger. Ivy was asked to bring him a warm cloth in the evenings. Not through a butler, not with gloves, but with her own hands. She was told to place it gently on his forehead while he reclined in his leather chair. The first time she did it, her heart pounded. She expected some reaction, some exposure of his supposed allergy, but nothing happened. His breathing slowed, his eyes closed. For a moment, it was almost peaceful. From then on, it became a routine. One night, just before she left his room, Nathaniel turned toward her and extended his cheek, quietly expecting something. Ivy hesitated. The air was heavy with unspoken meaning. She leaned forward and pressed a light kiss to his skin, unsure of what to expect. He exhaled softly, eyes closed. She stepped back quickly, afraid she had crossed a line, but the next night, the same thing happened again, and again the night after. It became clear that he wasn't just tolerating her presence, he was craving it. Ivy realized he had formed an obsession with her touch, one that he justified with false routines and silent rituals. The man the world believed was repulsed by women had built a secret dependency on one. She feared what would happen if she stopped. She feared more what would happen if she stayed. But most of all, she feared that this wasn't the first time he had done this to someone, and it wouldn't be the last. Ivy's instincts were no longer just whispering, they were screaming. Every day inside the mansion chipped away at her sense of safety. Nathaniel's obsession was growing stronger, more deliberate. He began inventing reasons to keep her in his presence longer, claiming to feel unwell, asking for re-cleaning of already spotless surfaces, even requesting her scent on freshly laundered items. The staff, though confused, followed orders. Ivy pretended not to notice the tension building, but her mind was racing with questions. What was he really hiding? Why had he never reacted to her touch if his condition was real? And what had happened to the cleaners before her? One evening, after completing her duties in Nathaniel's room, she noticed the edge of a wooden panel beneath the grand rug in the study slightly lifted. Her curiosity overpowered her caution. Once she was alone, she carefully peeled back the rug and pried the panel open. Inside, buried under a stack of old ledgers, was a small metallic USB drive. It had no labels, no tags. Something about its placement told her it wasn't meant to be found. She waited until midnight, when the household was asleep, and plugged the drive into her old laptop in the servants' quarters. What she discovered shook her to the core. The drive contained folders, each labeled with a name and a date. Inside were video files, surveillance footage from inside the mansion. Ivy clicked on one at random. A young woman appeared, dusting shelves in the same library she had cleaned that afternoon. The timestamp was from nearly 2 years ago. The video showed her entering a room. Then, the screen cut to black. Other videos followed the same pattern. Different women, different rooms. Some clips were incomplete. Some included footage of women being restrained, drugged or removed by unknown men in dark clothing. None of those women worked in the house now. Ivy's breath caught as she realized these were not just mistakes, they were victims. Nathaniel's fake allergy was a tool, a shield and a trap. By pretending to be allergic to women, he kept most away and controlled the few he allowed near. One file stopped her cold. It showed her, recorded in the hallway outside his bedroom, handing Nathaniel a damp cloth. The date was from 2 days ago. She hadn't seen any camera there. She began to understand. Every room, Every hallway, every corner was being watched. Every move she made was being stored, reviewed, perhaps manipulated. She hadn't just been hired, she'd been selected. Ivy knew then that she was in serious danger. She couldn't leave through the main gates without clearance. Phones were monitored, and her laptop had no internet access. The mansion, while beautiful, was a prison designed to appear like a palace. She was trapped inside the mind of a man who wore a lie like a crown, and she was the next name to be filed away in silence, unless she found a way out. Her time was running out. Ivy understood that survival now depended on strategy. Running or confronting Nathaniel would only speed up whatever plan he had for her. The evidence she had found wasn't just horrifying, it was powerful. But without a way to share it, it meant nothing. She began planning quietly, pretending to follow her routine as usual. Every kiss, every cloth, every lingering glance was tolerated, while she searched for more answers. She started hiding copies of the video files in secret locations around the mansion, beneath floorboards, inside ventilation grates, even tucked behind loose bricks in the wine cellar. If anything happened to her, someone had to find the truth. Nathaniel, meanwhile, had grown bolder. He no longer tried to hide his fascination. He asked Ivy to stay longer in his room. He told her he felt calmer in her presence, as if her touch was medicine. He even replaced 2 of the older male staff members, claiming he wanted fewer distractions in the house. Ivy knew what it meant. He was isolating her further, cutting off any potential help. She could see the final stage approach. Whatever he had done to the women before her, he was preparing to do again. The mansion had become a ticking clock. To buy herself time, Ivy leaned into the role he expected. She began writing small notes and leaving them in places he would find them, praising his intelligence, admiring his strength, playing the part of the loyal little maid he imagined her to be. Nathaniel's obsession deepened. He believed she was falling for him. That belief made him careless. One night, he left his tablet open on the armrest of his chair and fell asleep. Ivy risked everything by taking a photo of the screen. It displayed a blueprint of a hidden basement beneath the mansion. There were no stairs on any map, only a single locked elevator behind the study's bookshelf. The next day, she slipped a note into Nathaniel's daily journal. It read, "You're not allergic. You're addicted. And addictions are dangerous." She left it unsigned and pretended nothing had changed. The result was instant. Nathaniel became agitated, suspicious. He questioned staff, demanded camera replays, even ordered a security sweep of the grounds. But he didn't confront Ivy. He was too afraid to risk losing her. That fear gave her power. She used it. While the household scrambled, Ivy placed a discreet recording device inside the cleaning cart she used in Nathaniel's room. She began asking subtle questions about the past, phrased innocently, like admiration. Nathaniel, feeling safe, started to open up. He spoke about mistakes, about those who couldn't adjust, about how only certain women could understand his needs. He never said the word abduction, but the implications were clear, and the recorder captured every word. Now, Ivy had what she needed: visual proof, audio confession, and a copy of the mansion's hidden layout. All that remained was one last step: finding a way to pass the evidence to someone outside the gates before it was too late. She knew she couldn't trust anyone on staff, but a rare opportunity was coming. The private house doctor was scheduled to visit the next morning, and he might be the only person who didn't answer to Nathaniel. Morning arrived with a heavy stillness that wrapped around the mansion like a fog. Ivy woke before dawn, carefully reviewing her plan one final time. She had tucked the copied USB inside the lining of her uniform, secured the audio recording inside the base of her cleaning cart, and rehearsed her words 100 times. The house doctor, a middle-aged man who only visited once every few months, was the only outsider with temporary access to the property. If anyone could deliver the truth, it was him. She knew it was her only chance, and it might not come again. The doctor arrived just after 9. Ivy kept to her duties until she spotted him entering Nathaniel's private lounge. She waited near the hallway, pretending to polish the antique mirror until he emerged. As he passed her, she whispered urgently, "Please, look inside the cart." The doctor paused, confused, but saw the desperation in her eyes. He said nothing, nodded once, and continued on. Minutes later, Ivy pushed the cart to the laundry room and waited. Her heart pounded with every passing second. An hour later, everything changed. Police cars stormed through the front gate, silent but swift. The staff panicked, but Ivy stood still. Nathaniel, unaware of what had been set in motion, emerged from his study confused and demanding answers. Before he could react, officers restrained him. His face, usually calm and unreadable, twisted in disbelief. Ivy watched as he was handcuffed, searched, and led outside. No outbursts. No shouting, just silence. The lillis of a man who believed he was untouchable until the very end. The hidden basement was uncovered quickly. Behind the bookshelf in Nathaniel's study, the elevator led to a cold, dimly lit space with locked rooms and traces of a life never meant to be seen. Medical records, clothing, and items from the missing maids were found there, confirming Ivy's worst fears. Several women were discovered alive, drugged but breathing. Others had vanished without a trace, their names and dates left only in digital folders. Investigators described it as one of the most disturbing secret crimes in corporate history. The media exploded within hours. Headlines across the country read, "Allergic to women. CEO's lie hides dark secret." Nathaniel King was charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, psychological abuse, and obstruction of justice. During the trial, he sat expressionless as the evidence was played in court, his own voice confessing, the surveillance videos he had stored, and the floor plans that exposed his twisted operation. Ivy, under protection, was relocated and kept out of the spotlight. Her testimony was given in private, her identity shielded. Though praised as the brave maid who brought down a monster, she never sought fame or recognition. Her focus was survival and justice. Nathaniel was sentenced to life without parole. His empire crumbled. His name was erased from the tech world he once ruled. Yet the scars he left behind remained, hidden in the lives of the women he trapped and the maid he underestimated. His final obsession was the one who shattered his illusion of control forever.